Hello everyone, and welcome to the next chapter, the next screencast overview. This is chapter 16, and we start an introduction to the human body. So in this chapter, we'd like you to read all sections 16.1 through 16.4. If you look at this, we are looking at the organization of the human body, the skeletal system, the muscular system, and the integumentary system. That might be a new term to you, and really we're talking about the skin right there, the largest organ of the body. In 16.1, the lesson objectives are an outline of the levels of organization of the human body, and we'll also take a quick look at how organs maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is a scientific term for kind of steady state or constant environment. How do you maintain that? In our case, because we're warm-blooded, how do we maintain 98.6? Some vocabulary, some specialized vocabulary: connective tissue, epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, nervous tissue. Take a look at this diagram. As you know, we all start out, every organ in our systems all start out as one cell. If it's a cell that is a collection of cells that all perform the same function, that's called tissue. For example, your doctors, a lot of times your medical doctors will be talking about tissue more than they will individual cells. A number of different tissues that perform the same function, for example, in this case, the stomach, is up to the organ level. So we have cell level, tissue level, organ level, and then when a number of organs act together, we have an organ system. In this case, as you can see from the mouth and nose, we're leading down into the stomach. This is the digestive tract of the mouse. We've talked about this a number of times in class, but cells have different shapes because they have different functions. Our red blood cells have a function of carrying oxygen. Bone cells have the function of shape. Skin cells, protection. Nerve cells, carrying information. Muscle cells, contracting to cause movement. So the shape of the cell is very specific to their function. There are four types of tissue in the human body. There's connective tissue, epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. In this chapter, we're going to take a look at the skeletal system, which provides structure and shape to the human body. You look the way you look because of your because of your skeletal system and your face. There's the muscular system, which supports and allows us to move. A little later on, we'll look at the digestive system. There's also the respiratory system, how we get oxygen into every one of our cells. The nervous system, how the body communicates within itself. And the circulatory system that moves the oxygen and the red blood cells to every cell in the body. So let's take a look at the skeletal system. Make sure you read the lesson objectives, and you'll notice that this diagram from your textbook, I have a yellow line around it. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to know every one of the bones that's in here. I'd like you to know the cranium, the mandible, the clavicle, the scapula, the sternum, the humerus, the radius, and the ulna. Most of you know these already. Don't worry about the bones over here. These are the bones of the leg. But I'd like you to memorize the bones that are in here. As a matter of fact, this diagram will be in the quiz. This is an important diagram because it's going to reveal a couple different structures within the arm. So here we have one of the most famous muscles, the bicep muscle in your arm. But notice how this muscle is connected to the radius, this bone. It's connected with this thing called the biceps tendon. So tendons connect bones and muscles. So here's the muscle, here's the bone. On the other hand, we also need connections between our bones, and those are called ligaments. So the structures that connect bone to bone are called ligaments. These structures that connect the muscle to bone are called tendons. You'll notice that there's a yellow line running down in this diagram, and yellow is the agreed upon color for people that illustrate the human body, will always represent the nerves coming down, the nerve cells. There's a resource that I would like you to join and play with. It's free, and it's called BioDigital. I have it linked right here. If you're thinking about doing anything in the healthcare system, anything doctor, nurse, a physician's assistant, technician, anything connected with a healthcare system, this particular resource would be a really important one for you to join and be comfortable with. It's a really, really powerful resource for learning and discussing human anatomy and human physiology. So this is called BioDigital, and this is linked at this point in your presentation. There's also a wonderful site called eSkeletons, and what this allows you to do is examine and compare different types of skeletons. So comparative anatomy is a big thing in biology. This particular site, if you're interested, I just offer this as an option. You don't have to go in and join this or learn this one, but this is eSkeletons. Let's talk a little bit about bones. You have 4 types of bone tissue. There's compact bone, spongy bone, bone marrow, which is producing all of our red blood cells, and periosteum, which is a tough fibrous membrane. Here's a better look, an illustration of bone matrix and all of the parts that are in there. Now for the quiz, I'm not going to ask these terms, but I do want you to see the complexity of compact and spongy bone. There are a few types of specialized cells in your bone. There are the osteoblasts, the osteocytes, and the osteoclasts. Easy to get them mixed up, but take a look at these and see what functions they perform within your bones. Now, of course, there's also different types of joints. Your bones meet at different places in your body to create joints. Some are immovable, some are partly movable, and some are movable. We also have a YouTube video if you'd like to link out from your text to see that. So let's take a look at some of your movable joints. Your shoulder is ball and socket, your elbow is pivot, and your knee is a hinge. These are different types of movable joint in our skeleton. Movable joints are also known as synovial joints, and one of the reasons they're known for that is there is a fluid that acts to make these joints move easier and freer, which is called synovial fluid. Sometimes they're referred to as that type of joint as well. I'd like you to take a look at this short 4-minute animation which talks about archaeologists and bones and what bones reveal. It's a really interesting one. This is a young doctor. His name is Daniel Kraft. And getting bone marrow is very important for lots of different reasons in the medical industry. And Daniel Kraft, who works out of Stanford, has discovered a new, much less painful way to get to harvest bone marrow out of just one opening as opposed to 100 openings. And this is a 4-minute video. I'd like you to meet Daniel Kraft and watch this particular. The skeletal system gives us our structure. It's the muscle system which gives us our movement. So in this section, we'd like you to identify and describe 3 types of muscle tissue, describe the structure of skeletal, and explain how they make us move. And we're also going to look briefly at something called the sliding filament theory. So what are muscles? Muscles are made of muscle cells which combine to make muscle fibers, and the only thing they do is contract. These muscle contractions are responsible for all movements of the human body inside and out. There are these 3 types of muscle tissue. There's skeletal, there's smooth, and there's cardiac. Make sure you read about this. They'll talk about tendons, they'll talk about ligaments in here. This is a good little metaphor for how biceps and triceps work. Take a look at this. We have lots of muscles. These are the major muscles in our body. And they're going to talk briefly about the sliding filament theory. Believe it or not, at this point in time, we're pretty sure, we don't have it down 100%, we're pretty sure what makes muscles contract. We know the broad outline, but we don't have everything figured out. And the ongoing theory of how that happens is something called the sliding filament theory. Make sure you read this. I won't ask any specific questions on the quiz on it, but I'd like you to be aware of it. This is a short animation about muscles. There's 2 of them here that I'd like you to watch. Watch this one and the one on how do we make new muscles, how do we make muscles grow. Both really, really interesting and well done. The last section is 16.4, the Integumentary System, and this is your skin. Very important organ, the largest organ in the human body, and it regulates a lot of what happens in our body. It's just an amazing fact here. The average square inch of skin has, think of this, 20 blood vessels, 650 sweat glands, and more than 1,000 nerve endings. So if you've got 1,000 nerve endings between 1 square inch, that's what makes the skin so sensitive. This is a close-up diagram, a close-up illustration of the skin. You can see how things are put together here. We have capillaries in the dermis. We have sweat glands. Skin problems. They talk in your text about acne. They'll talk about skin cancer. If you take a look at this, the ABCs of skin cancers, ABCs and Ds, I should say, asymmetry, border irregularity, color, and diameter. Take a look at these pictures. One of the things that's happening a lot more in our world, because we're exposed to more UV light than in the past, skin cancer has been increasing. Always a good idea, especially as you get older, to visit a dermatologist, have your skin checked out. And this is another diagram, public safety warning of that. This is from the National Geographic, What is Skin? This is a really kind of funny and amusing, very creative way to talk about the skin. I'd like you to watch this. So even though this is an older TED Talk, this is Anthony Atala. He's a wonderful, wonderful researcher. And it's just amazing what he is able to do. This is one of the most dramatic talks I've seen on TED. It's only 10 minutes. I'd like you to take a look at it. This will give you an idea of where the organ transplant issue and problem is going in the future. There's also, again, if you're interested in healthcare, you're going to do anything with healthcare, a new book was just published in 2019. A very funny, very interesting writer by the name of Bill Bryson. He makes science accessible. This one is called The Body. It's, even although it's been out a few months, it's got over 2,000, almost 2,000 ratings. Very, very high rating. People really like Bill Bryson. If you are going into healthcare, highly recommend this book for you to read sometime. Okay, that's it. Good luck on the quiz. Make sure you read and study all those sections in 16.4, and I'll talk to you soon.